whenever you're ready.
Well, Mr. Mason, it is delightful to have a chance to see you again because we talked during Evil Under the Sun, and now we're here to talk with you about the verdict. I'm sure you're aware by now that the advanced reaction to the verdict is very, very good, and reaction to your performance is just wonderful. As a matter of fact, I wonder if you're prepared for a third Oscar nomination.
Well, I really don't attach any importance to me being nominated, although I'm all in favor of the Oscars. You know, I think it's great. I'm not one of those people who stand back and say, "Oof," you know, all the silly things that some people say about it. I think it's a marvelous PR instrument, and it's one of the greatest shows in the world, you know, as a spectator sport. The Oscars really outdo the World Series and the presidential elections and the anything else you can name as such. And so I think it's great. But I don't get worked up about getting an Oscar myself, although I'd be glad to be given any sort of award or present.
I wonder if you are aware of any reaction from the Catholic Church, or if indeed you even anticipate any reaction from them, since the film does deal with a Catholic hospital and the Archdiocese and so forth.
No, I hadn't even thought in those terms. I guess I know one or two Bostonian Catholics, but I haven't. I don't know any of them who've seen the film or know anything about it at this point.
In other words, when you were making the film, you didn't have discussions about, you know, how an archdiocese would be, you know, if they would be offended or anything. In other words, you didn't question that in the dialogue or in the script.
No, not at all.
Yeah, yeah. Of the two nominations that you've had, Georgie Girl and A Star Is Born, do you think that they represent your best work?
No, I thought The Star Is Born was quite good, and a lovely picture. I love watching that picture when it comes on television. And Georgie Girl, I don't know what I'd think about Georgie Girl. I never thought that I was particularly good in Georgie Girl. It was not nominable as far as I was concerned. There have been several other performances just on the point of merit that would certainly have deserved nomination more than that.
Which ones?
Well, there was a thing that it was a film I was very fond of. It was made only a few years ago, the Sherlock Holmes film. Did you ever see it?
Yes, I did. Yes.
Which I thought worked out very well, both for Christopher Plummer and myself.
Yes, I would certainly agree. I would have to include that among my favorites as well. In working with Paul Newman, Mr. Mason, is he the kind of actor that when you're acting with him, that things are really happening between the two individuals? Because you and I both know there are some actors who come across beautifully on the screen, but then when you talk about how they react and interact with other actors, you know, not that much is going on. What is Newman like?
Well, Paul is very good in that way, is known to be very good in that way, but I can't actually testify from personal experience because there was hardly any face-to-face personal confrontation between the two of us in this film. We were always at different, you know, addressing different people at the same time. But he really put a great deal into everything that he did in this film. He worked awfully hard and very effectively.
Is this going to be in your memory as a special film for you in any way?
Yes. I don't know in which way exactly.
In other words,
from a purely professional point of view, it was a special film because I always like working with Sidney Lumet, and I've worked with him several times. And this was a particularly good example because it was such a well-constructed script. And all the people he had working with him this time were absolutely of the top quality. And therefore it wouldn't be a surprise me a bit if this were accepted by everybody as a first-class film. I saw the film myself and I thought it was awfully good.
before we started this interview, I met your very charming wife, and she is totally enamored of our Neiman Marcus stores. So this fits right in with the question that I had planned to ask you. I'm doing a series asking famous people if they could have anything in the world they wanted for Christmas, you know, some tangible thing that you would go out and purchase or aspire to have. What would you most like to have if money were no object?
Oh, that's a really difficult question. I can't think of anything I want at the moment. I'm spoiled, you see, and my wife spoils me and looks after me and makes life happy for me. Gee, that's a tough question.
A certain kind of car, or a painting, or a sculpture, or a castle, or a country, or any of the above?
No, none of the above, no.
None of the above?
No.
Well, maybe then I'm going to have to go to your wife for the answer to the question, Mr. Mason.
Undoubtedly, yes.
Again, it has been charming to see you again, and thank you for a beautiful performance in The Verdict, and thank you for talking with us today. Nice to see you.
Thank you very much. I've enjoyed it very much.
Cut.
Okay. All right, sound for questions, please.
Stand by a second. Do you have sound? All right, good.
Are you prepared for a third Oscar nomination? Your two previous Oscars for Georgie Girl and A Star is Born, do you think they represent your best work? Which ones? How about The Verdict? How is that going to compare in your mind? We all know actors, Mr. Mason, who come across beautifully on screen, but then when you talk to the actors who work with them, sometimes there's not too much giving from one to the other. How is Paul Newman in that respect? Okay. If you could have anything in the world for Christmas and money were no object, what would you most like to have? Well, maybe a painting or a famous sculpture or a castle or a country. Any of the above? Okay, I believe that will do it.
Cut.